One thing in doing this work or any work where there are individuals experiencing things at a disproportionate number is you have to look at those that are falling within the margins, meaning who are those that at the end of the day, yes, everyone is experiencing this, but who are the ones that we're not catching? Who are the ones that we are losing? Who are the ones who we weren't able to touch and make sure that they got the services that they needed? And that is what this work is about. My first experience of molestation was around the age of 5, and I did not fully remember that situation when it first happened because my brain essentially repressed the traumatic experience. And I also unfortunately experienced rape when I was 13 years old. Because of the situation and things attached to it, I never talked about it. I never told anyone about it. And I just moved through life, again, masking, right, all of that trauma, all of that pain. So it wasn't until at that time my boyfriend had proposed and we got engaged, and I was really intentional about, I want us to make sure we go through premarital counseling. Through that process, I was able to address the sexual assault that I had experienced in my life, and I was also able to even more so clearly identify how it had negatively impacted my life over years.
And not only have you reclaimed your own personal power, but you're also helping other women reclaim their power. You're giving voice to the voiceless. Why is that so important for you?
Our voice gives us power, right? Our voice makes us feel confident, makes us feel strong. But when you have gone through that traumatic experience, there is nothing about that that makes you feel strong, that makes you feel empowered, or that you did something right. And so it's really about being able to help survivors in understanding the importance of reclaiming that voice. Because when you reclaim your voice, you reclaim the power over that situation.
So why did you decide to call the organization the Hive?
When you think about a hive, it's a place of security, it's a place of protection, it's a place where safety exists, but it's also a place that's busy. As a peer advocacy organization, everyone that works within our organization directly with survivors, we are survivors. We're professionally trained as advocates, but we're survivors. We prioritize all of our programming and our efforts in making sure that they are, again, culturally specific and that they are accessible to those who may live in low wealth communities, because again, those are the ones that are experiencing at the greatest rate. The implicit bias, those are things that definitely impact and influence oftentimes why survivors that are Black and brown do not come forward, because so often we're not believed. We definitely have to make changes systemically in regards to the way that we interact with Black and brown survivors, and really making sure that, again, the services that we are providing are equitable and they are accessible to all.
If there's one thing that you would want people to know about survivors, or maybe a stigma, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would definitely have to say, remove the gavel from out of your hand, because as a society, we tend to want to be the judge. We hear about the case of a survivor and we automatically try to draw the conclusion on if this person was telling the truth or not. I believe that as a community, as a society, it is very important for us to believe that individual, because it is not our role, our duty, nor our job to determine whether or not that survivor is telling the truth. Even in my work as an advocate, it is not my job or my role to determine if someone is being honest. It is my job to believe them and to provide them with adequate support and services. And so as a community, I believe that we would have so many more survivors come forward if we change the way we responded. How can we tell people time's up or me too if when they come forward, we're quick to determine whether or not they are telling the truth, or we try to invalidate, or we try to pull apart their truth and their story? Or are you going to respond to them in love and say, how can I support you? I'm so sorry that this happened to you. Or I just want you to know that I believe you. That is the response that survivors should be receiving.
So what was that moment for you when you decided, I need to create this organization, we need this in our community?
That moment came about for me the very first opportunity that I had to share my survivor story. I was 24 years old and had the opportunity to share my own story at a women's conference. And at the end of that women's conference, this was at a church, there was just an overwhelming number of women and young girls who came up to me and thanked me for sharing my own story, because through my story, they were able to say me too. That for me was that moment where I knew this is my life's work. This is what I've been called to do.